Hello and happy Wednesday. Today is March 2nd of 22. It is the first Wednesday of March, and where I live, it is a stunningly beautiful spring day. My name is Jenna Matlin, and welcome to Will You Give Me a Reading? Today is going to be a really interesting talk for those of you that want to come in live, or you can listen in later. Basically, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I killed my Facebook business page after 11 years. And I also took my Instagram account and went from public or a business account to a private account. So I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the reader community. There's a lot of people on YouTube that have been talking about it, and I want to take a bit of a brief historical romp, shall we say, and talk about where all this comes from, because the fact of the matter really is that if you are a reader, if you're an intuitive reader, hey Marion, it feels like you are between a rock and a hard place, between the scammers that are scamming you, and then all the business and government entities who make no distinctions between you and the scammers. So you're kind of getting it from two sides. And it's really annoying because it feels like there's an assault on us on all fronts. So I want to kind of talk about some of the history behind that. And I have some slides. They're not fancy. I've been pretty busy, but this is what we're going to do here. So wait, that's the first one. So, the issue really is not honest folks versus readers. And anyone who's not a reader, the business world, the government world, they're making that distinction. Really what it is it's everyone against scammers, whoever they may be, whether they are bankers, whether they are Bitcoin miners, whether they're whoever. Scammers are everywhere in all walks of life. And readers are no exception to that rule. But there are some historical precedents that continue to influence what is happening within our communities. And I think taking that kind of historical kind of viewpoint helps understand why it feels like we are just being buffeted on all sides with problems. Now, just so you know, I have been a full-time tarot reader, professional intuitive. Was it 2012? So 10 going on 11 years. I've seen it all. I've seen things come and go. A lot of the tarot community has exploded since I've gone full time, and there have been a lot of changes. But let me tell you, there is nothing new under the sun. This is all the same kind of stuff happening over and over again. And I'm going to talk about what we can do at the end of this. So let me kind of get through this. I want to kind of talk about that. A lot of the in the U.S., this is going to be U.S. focused, but in the U.S., a lot of the anti-fortune telling laws and such, really you start seeing them being put on the books in the early 1900s, and that was a response to the spiritualism movement in the U.S., which exploded after the Civil War. So many people lost loved ones, and there became just such an interest in connecting with the afterlife. So, hey, fire within her. So what happened was, as a result, of course, you have, whether you believe in this or not, there were people who never purported to see anyone dying or otherwise, and we're just conning people out of their money. So you have that piece, but then you also have the piece that's religious. And so you can see that this is a law still in the books in the state of Florida. And you can say, it says, as used in this article, fortune teller shall include any person holding himself as a fortune teller, clairvoyant, palmist, astrologer, phrenologist. That tells you how old this is. No one's doing phrenology anymore. Character reader. I don't know who that is, but I would love to find out what that means. Hypnotist, graphologist. Isn't that a handwriting analysis? Spirit medium or mental healer. Except that this article shall not apply to churches or to persons affiliated with churches who heal the sick by prayer, or ordained ministers of churches who are members of the Florida State Spiritualist Ministerial Association and charters that are filed. So you could see that this is a direct response to spiritualism. They do give a nod to the ordained ones. Like if it's certified, you're okay. If you're going to heal somebody and you do it in the name of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, good, but nothing else, is allowed. Now, sometimes you will see these laws, they contradict each other. So you'll get laws that say, oh, this is totally illegal. But then you'll also get, oh, but also you can get a permit. And these permits are very onerous and difficult. This one under this law was like $1,500 you have to pay for this permit. And that is to pay for them to investigate you. Like, talk about guilty until proven innocent, huh, guys? So as we see, these are definitely lots of laws on the book. I think it's so interesting. So if you look under Article A, no person shall obtain money or property from another by fraudulent devices and practices in the name of palmistry, card reading, astrology, seership, or like crafty science, fortune telling of any kind, or spiritualism or mediumship. So we're already seeing that out the gate. They're seeing any of this as fraudulent. Just by it, just saying any of that just instantly means that it's fraudulent, that there's no discernment whatsoever. And here, I mean, they really go into detail. Crafty science cards. What are crafty science cards? I would love to know. Charms, potions, magnetism, oriental mysteries. Oh my God. Racist. Or magic of any kind or nature, or by means of clairvoyance, spiritualism, and mediumship. So you see that spiritualism shows up over and over and over again. And, they do update them, but they often don't go back to clean up the earlier language. So you see, even though later at the bottom it says 1974, that it didn't start in 1974 with the spiritualism stuff. So New York, just as late as 1967, under our law, a person is guilty of fortune telling when they directly or indirectly solicits, receives, a person claims or pretends. Now that word pretend is a very, very important word within this ordinance. And so what we see here is laws really built to control people of the New Agey persuasion from scamming people who are vulnerable. But there's no distinction made between people who are plying their trade in a very honest way or not. So technically, if you're like, I'm not pretending to tell fortunes, I am telling fortunes. And how does one define whether one's pretending to do so or actually doing so? Those are some of the loopholes that people have used later on when the government has been giving them problems. So Pennsylvania has, so again, you have that pretend within the fine. All of Pennsylvania has a fine of $2,500. It is considered a class 3 misdemeanor. However, I was a very successful fortune teller or tarot reader in Pennsylvania for 10 years. And my business name was called Queen of Wands Tarot. Tarot was in the actual name of my business. They approved my doing business, my DBA, doing business as licensed, and they were more than happy to take my taxes every single year. I did want to highlight here that Pennsylvania goes even further. You can see that I've highlighted necromancy. So you're totally cool doing necromancy apparently in New York, but just don't do it in Philadelphia, guys. FYI for the rest of you. So before I went full time, so Philadelphia, I mean, again, the problem isn't that all readers are scammers. The problem is that there are scammers. And those scammers often will and have historically used this kind of stuff to take advantage of people. Uh, a lot, some, however you want to say it, storefront readers utilize tactics that I think are less than savory. And so Philadelphia had a ton of those readers. I know for a fact that almost every single one of them in Philadelphia, I had clients coming to me from them, telling me horrific stories of things they were told by these people in order to buy candles, remove curses or whatnot. A ton of them. So in 2007, Philadelphia tried to crack down and clean house with these guys. And so for about 2 weeks, they were all shuttered, and they were using this old misdemeanor as a reason to do it. And is this on the next slide? I can't remember. Okay, yeah. So, but they were only shuttered for 2 weeks because the storefront readers decided to say that it was discriminatory against their culture to shut them down, and it was a religious practice. And really, I think whether that's right or wrong, we shouldn't be using this carte blanche misdemeanor as a way to stop fraud. What you need to be doing is investigating fraud, and then stopping those that have fraud and making it easy for people to report fraud instead of like making them feel bad about it. So I feel like if you're trying to crack down on fraud, then you have to actually go after fraud, not this carte blanche thing that may or may not be fraud. Because what happened was they were able to use, for right or wrong, a cultural excuse for the work. But the fraud part was never actually dealt with. So then everyone celebrated, hooray, confetti in the streets, and all the storefronts reopened. Much to my chagrin, because I can tell you horror story after horror story after horror story of people that have been taking advantage of them. So after a while, and really we start seeing this in the aughts until recently, that you have these governments that are making, or cities that are making, reading tarot illegal, and the ACLU has stepped up a number of times to strong arm the local governments into, hey, you can't do that. This is a freedom of speech activity. And so this particular one was from 2010. Candace Wolfell, does anyone know her? I don't know her. Anyhow, there was a city of Eastridge. I'm not sure what state that was in. Oh, Tennessee. There we go. Tennessee. She was told, that it's unlawful for her to have. She just had like a little card table at a local like farmers market or something. Like, this is definitely just someone on the DL, like helping people on weekends, like a little mom and pop thing. But the ACLU filed a lawsuit on her behalf. The court immediately granted a temporary restraining order to stop the city from enforcing the ordinance pending a hearing. But with the temporary restraining order in place, she was able to reopen her booth. And then eventually the city council repealed the ordinance. So this is why I am personally not really bothered by, at least in the US, these laws, because there is such a statute of them being overturned with the right legal help, because really it is a freedom of speech issue. It is a religious rights issue. And this is the problem when they're making no difference between scammers who use our tools and us who use the tools. That's just ridiculous to me. But you can see that there's a historical precedent for it. Did we outlaw all bankers after the banking crash of 2008? Have we outlawed all politicians because some are so crooked? Why are there different rules for us in this industry versus others? So here's where it starts to get tricky. So cities are now, if they can't make it illegal outright, what they'll do is they'll create very high level bars for entry. So you'll have to purchase a business tax or a license or some other thing that they've made up, so that they can keep an eye on you, and you're paying them for continually having to prove that you're innocent, because the expectation is you're guilty. So privilege license taxes are rolling out even today. For example, where was this one? Oh, North Carolina. So fortune tellers, palmists, and elevator installers. Now I can say for a fact that the city of Chapel Hill, where I have opened an office, does have literally has a business license, privilege license, just for people in my work. I can't remember, it was like $500 a year. And the only other business on their list, I was trying to grab a screenshot, but I couldn't, was the only other list of a business that had to pay that much a year were the escort service businesses. So it tells you exactly what they think about us. So this one's out of Virginia. Again, the license can be up to $1,000 a year. And if you don't have it, if you don't buy that license, it's a class 3 misdemeanor. So even though it's not outright illegal, they're making the bar so high for entry that like what they're actually doing is the opposite. Like they're actually doing the opposite. Sorry, I get really upset that I lose my words. They are actually creating the very thing that they don't want, because who's got that kind of money? Like Mary, who reads out of her house a couple times a week, or the storefront place that's rolling in the dough because they're conning people. Money is not an adequate bar for entry for to separate the riffraff from the honest guys. It's just not. So this one was really incredible. I think this one's also in this place in Virginia. So to have a permit application, there's that $1,000, right? And so you have to, in the application, it's basically you're a parolee. You need to have addresses for the last 3 years. You need to show your height, weight, color of eyes, hair, 2 photographs taken within the last 6 months, your employment history for the last 3 years, and your convictions. What does this have to actually do with a business, privileged business license? As you can see, they're already making the case that you're guilty, you're a scammer, and we're going to just try to control you. So this one I didn't have time to dig more into, but it was really interesting. So fortune-telling permit shall not be effective until there's a bond held in the principal sum of $10,000. So if someone sues you or you screw somebody over, you're paying for your own defense and also restitution, but you're doing it ahead of time just in case. And this one, you have to, when you apply for the fortune-telling permit, you have to supply your fingerprints. Yeah. So, why the hate? You have religion who thinks that what this stuff is like the mark of the devil. It's an evil influence. They're also trying to use this, as I've said, as this anti-scammer situation, but it doesn't really work. And then also though, and the thing that I think we need to be talking more about in the tarot community is there is truly a lack of regulation within our industry. So we are not self-policing at all. And also we don't have a body of governance like other professional organizations do. And I think that is the key piece. So we talked about that. But here's the thing again, scammers scam readers and querents. Scammers scam everyone else. Readers aren't scammers. Scammers are horrible people, and they'll do wherever they think they can get in to be fraudulent. So we are also victims along with the querents that have fallen for these people. But that's not how we're treated. So I'm going to talk about what's been happening in Instagram. So Instagram, I would say about a year and a half ago, I started getting these mirror accounts. What they do is they create these bots that basically mirror your profile, and then they update the profile name to be almost your name, but like one letter off. And then they'll go and follow all your followers. And so what happens is a follower is like, oh, Jenna, yes, of course, I'm, going to follow you back. I thought we were friends, but oh, maybe something happened. And then immediately what they do is they message your followers saying, hey, can I give you a reading? Hello, Moonbeam. And there's typically a shit ton of emojis. You will never see this many emojis ever in anything that I ever do. That's the first thing. So this one was actually another reader that wasn't me, but like I was kind of trying to bait the scammer to get more intel. So they were like, okay, it's $50. And I was like, how do I pay? PayPal or Cashew? I don't know what Cashew is. But I think it could tell you whether it could give you a sense of geolocation. So I was like, okay, well, give me some more. And so he or they or whatever sent me a PayPal donation link. And I was like, why is a donation link different than your name? And then they were like, oh, well, it's just to protect for scammers. Like they're getting smarter like that. Like they're definitely gaslighting themselves in this process. And so I said, okay, cool. So to protect me from scammers, and then I tried to video call them. Of course, they didn't pick up. I was like, why aren't you picking up your video call? Oh, well, I just don't work that way. Okay, well, I'm going to call you. Of course, they didn't pick up. And then finally I did a voice message and was like, why don't you just do a voice message? I want to hear your voice. I need to protect myself. So then they did that. And you can see it right here. They like recorded themselves. They didn't record themselves. It was obviously like they put a YouTube video of someone doing meditation, and then they like recorded that for a second and sent that. It was so funny. So then I was just having a great time, like talking about their mothers. Like, your mom's gonna have a great time because of me. And I was like, you recorded some random crap from YouTube, so this is becoming worse. It is becoming crazier. Everyone is being affected by it, and Instagram isn't really doing much about it. And I'm actually going to skip ahead. Okay, so sorry, let me see if I can get this a little closer. So these are 3 separate reports that happened from late December and January. So these are 3 different scammers that I then reported. So a lot of times what they'll do is when they target you, they'll mirror your account, and then they'll block you. So then you can't actually see them and you can't report them. So I've had to report them from my personal account. But what happens is, and if you can see this, sorry that it's like so small, but you can see that in the beginning, in December 28th, the bottom one, that they were systematically pulling down these profiles. And then I think as these numbers started going insane, Instagram or Meta just no longer had the personnel to go through these one by one. And then the final 2 say, oh, well, we're not going to take this account down because it does not violate community guidelines. So if it's the exact same thing, why was it worthy of being canceled in December before you all got like slammed with these scammers? But now these 2 actual scammers who have pretended to be me does not go against community guidelines. Again, we're all being roped up. And so the problem with this is Meta definitely has the technological capacity to absolutely create their own algorithms who can crawl their own system and immediately flag within seconds any like accounts that look similar to like actual accounts that have history. The technology is there, the will is not there. And I think what's happening is, I don't know how much longer we have on here. I have actually had my actual clients fall for this and come to me saying, I PayPal this person. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And so for me personally, I had to make the very tough decision to go private because I could no longer allow my followers to be scammed with me as the the place for that to happen. So then that comes at great cost. Once you go private, your stuff can't go viral. You can't pay for advertising. Not that you can really pay for advertising on Meta anymore, because you cannot do targeted ads with tarot or astrology anymore, along with a lot of other things. And also, what else? Like, people can't share the stuff that I have, but I have to say that I feel like calmer. I get to decide who comes into my world. And I've seen scammer looking accounts trying to request follows, and I just delete them. And so since I've gone private, my world has become very calm. And I've not had this problem ever since. A lot of readers, of course, and for good reason, are terrified to do that because this is their means of marketing. But if it's your own only true means of marketing, you're really leaving yourself and your followers at great vulnerability. Where am I going here? Okay. So let me see here. Sorry, so now I want to talk about why I also killed my Facebook page. So my Facebook page would have people that would review me. So they'd be like 5-star review. And then the 5-star review would be just them talking about how, high priest, Omo or whatever, got them their lover back with their WhatsApp number. And Facebook used to take these down, and then they really just stopped doing it. I had one on there that was still there 3 months after. They never did anything. They basically said, you can block them, but there was no option anymore to request the review to be taken down. There used to be, it was taken off. So you can see that I had something from September that was never taken down. You can report it, but you can't do really anything about it, and you can't take down your own reviews. Now, I want to draw a comparison with Yelp. A lot of people have problems with Yelp, but I've also been on Yelp. I mean, when I started, Yelp was a much bigger deal than it is now, but I also get similar ones on Yelp, like those fake scams as reviews. Those are taken down within 24 hours of each report every single time on Yelp. Yelp has always taken action. But when it comes to Meta, they sometimes take action, but mostly don't. And so as someone who is in a business to business environment where I am actually spending money for advertising, like, you're not treating me very well. This is not how this is supposed to work. So for any of you who've had this experience, I can tell you that when you work for a business that cares more about like people buying their ads, you're going to get an actual response. They're not just going to ignore you. So I also want to go back to this piece, which I wanted to talk about. And I'm sorry, it's kind of slow. It's kind of small. So here's the difference between Yelp and Google. You're going to get, because Yelp, they say you pay for reviews. I've never seen that actually to be evidentially true. And I have a ton of reviews on Yelp, and I know a lot of people on Yelp. So what happens is there's vetting on Yelp for right or wrong, and there's no vetting on Google reviews. So here is a screen capture of two different review platforms on Google and Yelp. This person, as you can see, on Yelp, they only have 2 stars. They're not good. But on Google, Google also does not vet or take down reviews. They have 7 5-stars. And so this is another thing I would tell anybody. If you're just going by Google reviews, you need to cross-reference it probably with Yelp, because it's really in Yelp where you're going to see a more vetted response and probably a more accurate response. Because these scammers, they'll just, get like 20 different accounts or ask their friends. Like, it's not actually a good way to go. But I don't know if the general population knows that very well just yet. So Marion Kay, yeah, felt liberating for her to go private. Yeah, it did for me too. And now I get to vet the people that I'm with. And yeah, maybe my stuff doesn't go viral, but that's okay. I'm now on YouTube. So whatever. So you can see we're not being protected by the very people who are happy to take our money as well, because they're not making any distinctions between scammers and us. So as I talked about this, and so what I think is that these businesses are using their inaction, their inaction as a reason to hunt down everybody and make these wide sweeping carte blanche policy changes that sweep everybody in. Their inaction is basically enabling the scammers, and then they're blaming all of us for the scams. How ridiculous is that? So as we've seen, making the practice of reading illegal, requiring outrageous business licenses, denying services like banking to professionals, which I'll get get into in a minute, and then the targeting ads in Meta. So these are all the things that we're faced with, as well as also the scammers. Like we're being scammed, and then we're also not being protected or treated seriously because we're seen as scammers. I mean, doesn't it just blow your mind? It blows my mind. It blows my mind every single day. So I wanted just to talk about a lot of banks will not and have not historically covered people in our profession. So you see, Adyen Services is a bank, and they also don't do what they also call pseudoscience. And the reason for that is the scammers have a high chargeback rate. So people will charge back. They'll want their refunds. And so they do have historical data for what that is, but they're making no distinction between them and us. Matter of fact, I was on Stripe for 7 years. I had to use Stripe because Stripe was the only integration at the time with Schedulista, which is where I had people book appointments. So they immediately tried to boot me in 2014, but because I worked with Schedulista, I was able to get a back-end exception. That worked until 2019 when they came to me again. I guess now Stripe was kind of too big to fail. And they said, oh, yeah, you have 4 days. You have 4 days to get off of our system. I was running my whole business. They made a lot of money off of me. I had maybe one chargeback in 7 years. And I said, can you at least give me a month? Can you give me a month to move this, a huge thing? And they're like, nope, you have 4 days. It took me a week. I had to stop everything to shift everything over to another banking industry. So that's the thing. We are not protected. We are not protected at all. Square, also technically, and many of you use Square, they don't allow occult materials. SumUp and iZettle, they don't allow fortune telling at all. Stripe boots off readers. Now, Stripe on their terms of service used to have fortune telling on the term of service, but it appears like last year or the year before, they changed the language. So now I don't actually know if they would let you or not. I'd have to look that up. I'd be so mad. So any business that Stripe considers unfair, deceptive, or predatory towards consumers. So any other business that Stripe considers, I want to talk about that word, considers. Not proves, not has evidence for, just considers. So that could be anything. They're just like, yeah, I just think they're scammers. Let's get rid of them. And the problem is that, these banking companies integrate with a lot of our other platforms, maybe your newsletter, maybe your Shopify, maybe, Etsy, I don't know. So when we have one link in the chain that's vulnerable, everything that it's connected to is vulnerable as well. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, yes, the screenshot on the left, it was in 2012 that eBay banned all tarot readings and spells. I was not on eBay at the time. but it was huge for some people at the time. Some people lost their livelihoods overnight because of this ban, and they tried to fight it, and eBay said no. So what I'm saying is, don't think that these big flat platforms like Etsy, like Square, like Meta, whatever, will not carte blanche get rid of us, all of us, if they feel that we're causing more problems than we're worth. And the scammers are definitely causing so many problems within Meta that they're no longer doing anything about it. And this could be coming for us too. This could be something we see. And people say, no, that's not going to happen. Well, maybe not. But there is historical precedence that it has happened and it has ruined people's lives, which is why we cannot stay on just one platform. You can't. So that's my talk, right? What can we do? What can we do as honest readers? Number one, we can try to spread out the risk. And we do that by not relying on any one platform, really trying to have multiple platforms so that we can easily shift and move. Make friends, if you're in the US, make friends with your local ACLU. Like if you want them to come to bat for you, you come to bat for them. Have them get to know you. Become part of the advocacy movement. Work to take clients from the scammers. And that's what I did. There's another reader in Florida, and both of us have talked about this phenomenon that when her and I became quite successful in our brick and mortar stores or I had an office. It wasn't a walk-in, but I had an office. What they do is they target you. They open a storefront, usually like as close to you as they can get, to try to siphon off your clients from you. This has happened to me. This happened to somebody else that I know. But this is why I'm unapologetically visible, because the more of us that are out there doing good work, doing honest work, the more we're taking from the scammers back. And we get to control the narrative, not them. So yeah, I don't have $10 or $20 readings. You get what you pay for. And I will never upsell you. I will never tell you, invent a problem that you have that you cannot evidentially know for yourself, that you're going to give me $500 or a Gucci bag or whatever. So this is why we have to run interference, grab the ball and take it in the other direction. And we can only do that if we're unapologetically ourselves, being as professional as possible. The other thing is regulation. Now, I know a lot of people really hate certification. Who are you to certify tarot versus another person? That is a fair argument. And I don't even think that that's what we need to do. But what if we had a professional regulatory body where everybody put in a membership, like $10 or whatever? It's run by a board, and we're the professional body for the people that do the work professionally. And then they will be the ones that advocate and step in when there are these onerous, stupid, and ridiculous laws against us. When we create a professional body, that means that we combine together to fight something that is that we're not going to be able to do on our own. And we start to show up in a very different way. So the longer we decide to fight among ourselves, be individualistic, sit in the shadows, the more that this is going to affect all of us, because we're not in any kind of regulatory way showing how we're different. And I think we could, without the certification. I think we could. So also advocate, teach, engage with people, let people know who you are, let them see who you are, be your unapologetic, healing, honest self. And so I feel that if we want this to stop, we can't wait for anyone else to treat us fairly. But what we can do is we can rally together, and we can create a regulatory, advisory body where we band together and fight these things and maybe make things better for everybody. So that's my TED Talk for today, everybody. Though I do have to say, since, I've gone private, I've not seen any difference. I saw no difference in my Facebook. What it's happened is it's actually funneled people to email me directly, or to just book a reading. So now I'm not crazy making, trying to respond to 5 different messages off of 5 different platforms and making content for all of them. That it's really more streamlined. It's a lot crazy making for me. And a newsletter, like the newsletter is the way to go. The ROI in newsletters is like, what was it? Something like 2,400 or 3,400%. It blows anything out of the water in social media on a consistent basis. And this is why traditional businesses still use it. And this is why that has always been my ace in the hole, because newsletters are mine and no one can take them from me. I am directly responding to my people, my followers, my clients, my friends. And then I can move it. So as much as possible that you can keep you under your own umbrella and roof and not having to rely on the arbitrary BS of another platform, the more stable you're going to be. Now, to that end, here comes the pitch. It's funny to me that like readers use newsletters the least as a business coach. Carte blanche, you use them the least, but it gives you the highest return on your investment. So a month from now, I'm going to be teaching a class called Inbox Intuitive. You can find it on my website, jennamatlin.com. If you want to learn how to build a robust newsletter relationship management system that can never be taken from you, that is always going to be yours, highly recommend you sign up. And so that is it for today, guys. I'm going to head over to Instagram and try to do this a little faster. But next week, yes, it's next week, Mary and Kay, we're going to be talking next week about how to don't be a tarot Karen. And what does that mean? So grab your popcorn, grab whatever you need for your afternoon snack, and you need to get in here because we're going to have a great talk. So that's it for me today, guys. You can reach out to me, Jenna at jennamatlin.com, or, I am on Instagram for now, privately. You can always DM me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So thank you guys all for coming in. I really, it is crazy, guys. So I'm glad you're here. Let's stay awake. Let's stay aware. Let's stay honest, and let's take care of each other. Okay. All right, guys. I love you all. Bye.